Well, good afternoon, and welcome to the Dream Labs and Dr. Contrast Live here. And before I begin today, I just want to take a quick moment and review here and point out something I think is really important to do so. And I just want to take a moment to thank all of you who've been on board over the last 2 days going through this process on these PC towers. It's been really a lot of fun to put some ideas down and go through the process of interchanging ideas with you, and I hope you've had as much fun as I've had in putting together the program. And it's really good to have the feedback, too, because sometimes you get into a mode where you start to draw this stuff and begin to create and think your way through the process, and sometimes you get lost in the woods and the weeds and so forth, and it's just interesting to have some feedback coming in to the whole content of what we're doing. So really neat stuff here, guys. I thought today we'd go back and do a little real quick review, and then after the review go back, and I just picked one design, and we might wrap it up here to just maybe a little bit slowed down sketch rendering process using some Prismacolor pencil. I'll let what we have in my hand, and also a little bit of newsprint and some pastel and some marker, just a little variety of things to kind of close things down here, and we'll see how this interfolds here, or unfolds, pardon me. So here we go. I'm just going to go through a real quick review of some of the sketches we started with here over the course of the past few days. This is where we began just doing some tower concept work in terms of just putting, this is more of an organic, or pardon me, more of a sheer, kind of a very crystalline looking things, and then changing pace with this guy over here, a little bit more organic and traditional, but going back in and doing some pretty sheer things with like octagonal forms, hexagonal shapes and the like, and just trying to look at new ways of perceiving cases. So that was sketch one in essence. So we eliminated that out of the way. And then we went to a second page in the same family. This all took place on Tuesday. Went back in and did another variety of forms with the same basic overall theme, but just kind of maybe trending a little bit more to a very sheer approach in terms of putting together the package. And I thought it was interesting throughout the whole process too. When I was going through these exercises, I don't want you to misunderstand. These are not just simply looking at sketches for sketches' sake, but looking at a way to package this stuff as well. Maybe a new way to look at things in terms of packaging and stacking, or else organizing the driving components that are involved in the process. For example, power supplies, motherboards, the video cards, and the cooling systems and the like. All that's going to be part of the factor here, or factors, in putting together the final design process. So as we go through this, I'm going through these, looking at exercises, maybe a little bit too on the thin side, a little bit too on the thin side. But again, something like this and like this began to really hit some chords here in that second day on Wednesday. Probably the same day on Tuesday, the second passive sketches. This is interesting because you've got that 45-degree slope that goes in for loading, for example, that maybe the top of the back comes off, you begin to load all the elements in, and then put enough width in this thing to kind of put together the pieces for packaging and the like. So that was one approach we looked at. Then the other one was pretty well favorable, was this guy, which is more of a vertical air jet power, or just two vacuoles going through the entire process, and the product to kind of cool things off. So that was those two sketch panels took care of Tuesday's exercise. Then we jumped in, for example, yesterday on Wednesday, and based on the feedback that we received on this sketch here, this family of studies, went back in and began to look at some variations on those two themes. So we went back in and looked at phase one. This was done yesterday during the live stream. This whole process again was taking advantage of that one theme we looked at. This is more of the traditional 45-degree stack piece, so it was more of these kind of elements. We want to put a hood on it. Do we want to set back this a little bit? Do we want to really crown this back a little bit more, or elevate it? Do we want to put it on stilts? The same process again, that initial sketch with that same stackability in the back of it. And then just another one-point view of what this might look like coming from the rear end of this thing. Again, a very severe slant and a very high tail, again, for loading the elements and the packaging purposes into it. So that was number one that we did yesterday. And then the second part of the theories, or the themes we did, were these two vertical, almost hydrofoil jets, the air intakes that came through the process from the sketches done on Tuesday. So we magnified a little bit, went to a horizontal pattern, obviously, and one element, and also went back to the vertical side, being very tall and stackable, a little bit of a slope or a canted back or a sliced insert piece in the center portion, everything loaded from the back side into this operation. And then another variation on theme here, we're just going to minimize the size of the intake, the air coolers on the right and left of the product itself, and then begin to just put together the same chamfer into this whole process as another variation of the theme. So based on those two elements today, I think I'm going to go back in and do a little bit of Prismacolor pencil and a real rough sketch and go back to that initial first phase of sketches here. So I'm going to start doing just a little bit of a line wing style. I'm going to start very lightly here, just kind of block this thing in and just get it started as I move through the whole process here. Let's kind of just go back in here. I'm just going to lay into some real loose little sketch work here. Get the process started. Notice again that angle. I made a big deal last week, or throughout the entire week, of getting into a platform and what that platform really truly means. What that actually does is that what I'm picking up here is a platform. This thing is sitting inside a rectangular form, so I'm carving the element out of it. So let's go back in and just kind of crisp it up a little bit here. Go through it very quickly. Add a little bit of media to it as we go through the process. I'm going to start very lightly here to kind of get this process to work here. And yet keep it nice and fluid. Nice and smooth. Let's get some of the character in place here. You have any questions along the way here, feel free to open up, ask some questions, and we'll try to do the best we can to get that set for you here. Let's go back into this. Let's get this done on the baseline here. Let's get that baseline set. There it is. So it's that. So all of a sudden, I'm starting to build that, block that in. So let's go back into this drop, a little bit of a recess here, and then it kicked back uphill. So we go back uphill just a bit. Let's just take that back in perspective. So I'm being very, very generous here, just kind of laying in the foundation of getting this process to kind of tell the story for us. So go back, and again, still not being very restrictive or very rigid with it. I want to be very loose and spontaneous. It kind of looks like it happened just like that. Kind of neat stuff, just instead of laboring over it. Now let's take this back in perspective. Let's kind of get this little bit of a color band in here that we worked with on Tuesday and Wednesday. Let's get that into place. Let's run that through where that intersection is. And then we'll just drop it in, and instead of kind of letting it die, let's take it right back around the entire form. Let's do this. Let's take that through it, and let's take that through it. Now, there's a basic package. There's the overall structure of the box, and then pretty interesting how that piece comes together. A little sneaky facet back here to kind of give a little bit more shape definition. Now let's get some thickness into this thing. Let's put a little sidewall on it. Pardon me as I just kind of slow this process. I'm going to give myself a break point right about here. Take that through, bring this up, and bring this up. Just getting a frame of reference in place. A little bit of recess. Let's take this back. Notice how each line, very lightly illustrated, begins to tell the story about where the sections are. For example, out to flush, back a little bit of an offset, back to normal, back out to flush again. A little bit of an inclined plane, keeping that nice and smooth, and put a little bit of a fillet right in there. Get that done. Now let's just chase this down to a center line. Let's get this center line in place. And I'll begin to just build where these elements are going to come from. This, then it breaks again. So let's put a power control piece here. And let's kind of put a couple of toggle switches down here just for some auxiliaries, just to kind of create a little bit of a fascia graphic on this guy. It might not become part of the process when we work with it, but let's put a rocker through here, and a rocker there, and a rocker there. Just to kind of occupy a little bit of space. There we are. Let's put this in recess here. There it is, on and off switch. And again, let's break this up. A little bit of some additional cooling systems off the back end of this thing. And let's bring it right down a center line and put some information, maybe some medium, intermediate, and high-powered lighting system to kind of tell us where we are here. So let's go back into this guy here just a bit. Let's put a bit of shadow, just a real light shadow back here, just so we know where the base is, where the light source is coming from. So we play that in just a little bit here. There it is. And then just a little bit of just a touch more to break this up. Split this up for an assembly portion here. That might be a little bit of a removable shell to get at it. But again, there it is, gang. I mean, that's the pretty straightforward little thumbnail sketch on how to put this beauty together. And again, we're following, let me bring this back here just for our remembrance here. We're basically following the one that was a consensus over the last 2 days. My hands to work here would be good. Right here, where we had this guy in place. There it is. Let's just see if we can get them going side by side here. No, maybe not. Let's see what this does here. No, that was let's just do this. That's the theme we were going to work on here. But again, modifying it and getting a little more streamlined with it and getting a little bit more organized with it. Pardon me just a moment to get this stuff organized on my studio desk here. so I know where I am. There we are, back at it here. So anybody, if you've got any questions or concerns as I go through this thing, feel free to just speak up, and we'll try to do a bit of a right-handed address for you here. So just going to put this little chamfer in place here. Let's go back in here. Now, another thing that's nice too is to get into an area where you start putting a nice little elevation. What does this look like in the pure side view? Again, same process. Let's get this to move. And that little bit of an upper on it. That's a little offset here. Let's get that real severe slant in place into that rear kick, which is there. Let's turn this into that little color band into there. There it is there. That's kind of interesting how it all comes together. And let's get this little triangle, this little wedge in here. That's a little offset. It comes back in to pick up that rear section there, this tail section on this gear here. Let's go back into this, break that up, get that to set, put that cooling system in place, and a little bit of an assembly split line right in there. And before you know it, you've got a good story going on here about what this form looks like, not only in perspective, but also what it might look like in an elevation, just to give it a sense of drama or scale. A little bit of drop shadow in this thing too. So it doesn't look like it's just sitting there abstractly in space. So let's kind of drop that in just a bit. And there we are. Now I'm going to take a moment here, probably as I move the pad around quite a bit here, just get those cooling bins in place. One, into the second, into the third. There we are. Let's get those guys. Let's do the same thing over here. Let's get them all in place. There we are, over the top. Notice this sketch, this little study, for the time being, I'm keeping it pretty generous in terms of light. Not too much scream yet in terms of putting some content together here. I'm just going to set these back just a touch. Not a lot of impact in terms of darks and lights yet, because I just want to build the thing as I'm going through the process here. But I think one of the nice things about getting to this state of the game is to, now let's go back and add a little bit of this. Let's put a little bit of tone to this thing. Keeping it nice and easy. Let's see if we can kind of keep this. One of the things about newsprint is a really great medium, I think. It's a very underutilized piece of information to deal with, but I think it's great to deal with because it's an old-fashioned, in a sense, an old-fashioned medium, but it was just a great surface because it almost gives you almost like a Renaissance feel, like sepia tone work and so forth. Really interesting, cool stuff. So I'm going to just frame in that little window area there, get that all set. Let's kind of put this into place. Now we use a lot of pastel and a lot of drawing back into this thing to kind of define it for us here as we go. So let's just lay this in, get a basic structure in. Again, as I turn this around, just to stain it in. And as I begin to open this up, you'll see we'll add a little bit of a recess in here. Let's go back to then pick up a little bit of this, where this contour is. Let's kind of get that to play in here. There we are. We'll separate these guys. I'm just going to start staining in some surface work now. And the more I stain this in, the more you'll begin to see, as things open up here, you'll see what the drawing process does. And I've often said this throughout each stream I do, and I think it's so important to really stress every time we get together. And that is simply this, that it begins with drawing and it ends with drawing. You can't fabricate everything. You've got to go back in and refine it, and define it, and so forth, and take time to really resolve what you want to do with the drawing. So media won't do it. This is just a tool as an insert piece or a filler, but it will not put a lot of detail into the work, so that has to come from our expertise in knowing where to place the drawing emphasis. So I'm just laying in some very quick little surfaces here. I'll come back and refine it with a lot more drawing, just laying in value. Just a little recess in here, get that to work just a bit. That's that. Let's go back in just one more time with this pass. That's that. Now, let's go back and put some reflection on this thing. Let's go back a little deeper with the value. This is going to be probably the most concentrated part of the whole process of laying in that front face here. So let's go back and take a second here. There's a little bit more reflection. and follow our light source, where that's going to come from. In this case, it's coming in from the right-hand side. So I'm going to come back in and just stain this just a bit. Nice little pattern in there. And we'll pick it up again. Just a nice little reflective process, and then all of a sudden it just kind of opens that beauty up because there's a little more distance, a little more depth. So let's come back in and let's go back to a little bit of drawing, tune in just a bit more. I'm almost ready here to kind of give this thing a good kick. Now let's go back in and add just a touch more. Yeah, let's go back to this, just a touch. Let's get a little bit of this down below here. Let's kind of put this in the shadow here. And again, just drop this down just a bit. Spending a lot of time in this area. Pretty critical feature in the actual overall design portion of it. And just giving it a little bit more life. Let's see what happens here. Pardon me, just open that up just a bit more. And there we are. A little bit more character to it, so it just kind of tells us where we are here. Now I'm going to sneak in just for a moment here to show you what this drawing process does. Now I've got the basic surfaces stained in. We'll come back in and do the following. That's what happens here. When you start to draw back in. Amazing. Highlight. And again, let's do this. Add a little bit of definition here. Then maybe a little bit of texture change. Look what that did. All of a sudden, that surface, when that layering in, really begins to tell the viewer what you're telegraphing to display this design here. Just for a moment, let's go back in. Let's put a little bit more of this in place now. A bit of shadow. Some additional drawing definition here. And right away, look how that thing just starts to read for us here, that little highlight and shadow area, really kind of coming together for us here. Let me just go back to this for a moment, and let's get this kind of crown just a bit more here. That's better. There we are. Excellent. There it is. Now, we can go back and add some line weight. Closest to me, I'm really going to hit it. Now I'm going to start to really accentuate the form. I'm going to leave a lot of paper together here so that I can come back in and add another medium, pastel, to really kind of get this thing to crank here. Line speed. Thickest closest to me. Then as it moves away, there's a little more drama. Look at that thing start to open up a little bit now. It's more expressive. Let's go back in through here, tighten it down. As that line moves away in space, I'm going to let it fade. Pick it up slightly. Tell the viewer where my light source is coming from. Is it about right in there? Just kind of stop it just a bit. A little bit of magic in the line work. Run that through and just keep it nice and loose. Notice, thick to thin, space. Gives you a little bit more dimension and depth. And that really begins to tell a story. Let's go back and get this defined a little bit more. A little more shadowing through here. In the light source. Let's get these guys in place. Now you might not have these, for example, in an auxiliary piece such as this, but again, I just want to put in some space here. Occupy a little bit of room. And again, let's put a little bit of on-off single here. Small as that is, but it kind of tells a little bit of a story. Hope they can kind of read that a little as we go through this guy. And let's take a little bit of a light study here. Let's go back in and add a little bit of this button switch over from the light source. Let's put some character to this thing. It's that to that. Then we can come back in and add a little bit more definition. How's that, gang? Just coming together. Nice, simple little studies here. There we are. Okay, so just about ready to put some more heat to the rest of this thing. A little more line work, a little more study here. And like that sketch we did the other day from Tuesday's stream, go back and put a little bit of color in this thing. I'm going to keep the paper really open for that special little wash in pastels here. I want to do a little bit of this just to trim this thing. Turn it around the corner. And let's add some bit of accent here. A bit of highlight change. Let's move this in. Take this right through with a nice little design strap. There's over the top. A little bit of variation in the light here. Making a little more substance to it, so it's not so consistently flat, in terms of a flat green, rather, pardon me. And I'm just going to pull back a little bit more here. And fill it in. A little more animation in some of the line work here. There we go. There's that little design strap in place now. And let's go back in and look at this thing from the point of view of going back to a little bit more drawing now. This is really where it becomes really critical in terms of making sure that the impact is proper. Let's go back in and reinforce this thing now. A little bit of shadow in this thing. Yeah, there we are. Tell us where the light source is coming from. Just do this upside down from over here, pardon me. Get this started. want to ground this guy. Upside down again, pardon me. And that tells us where that ground line and where that shadow is coming from, and where probably where the light source is coming from. And it's a real good clue to kind of finish up the sketch here in terms of getting this line to return on itself. And take it back into the shape. There we are there. Now let's finish up the rest of the geometry here. Put line weight in here. And let's do this, just to kind of get a good start here. Put a little bit of the web in here. Pardon me as I go up here. Very delicate with that marker, just taking us right back into that area there. There it is. Interesting, gang. Look at that. All of a sudden the line weights are coming together. Color, a little bit of color is coming in to blend it for us here. Let's do this just to let's see if we can get a little bit of a tone change in here. A little bit more magic in this green. Change a little bit of value here. So it's not the same static tone. A little bit more animation in here will really help us. There we go. A little more drama in there so it's not so flat. There we are. A little more reflective quality, especially back in there where that little shadow reverse is going to be. There it is. There it is. Let's get a little more definition down there. That's neat. It's up on top. Even there, sometimes you get a little bit of reflected light that'll come back in across this band. Let's do that. Let's get that in place. Let's get that highlight to run in just a bit. There we are. Well, we're just about ready to put some real heat to this thing in terms of definition. So let's do this. So the center line here. We've got one power mode. 1, 2, 3. A little bit of shadow in there. A little shadow here, a little bit of definition there. All of a sudden, what do you think, gang? If you're on board here, let me know what you think. So far, just doing a nice little job of getting this guy to come together here, and just tuning in that side, that perspective study here. We just got that tower started here, so let's do this. We'll come back and have a bit more definition in this guy. A bit of a power split, little recess area there, and a little bit more definition inside that form. Let's put a bit of shadow in this thing too. Let's put a little more zip in this thing, yeah. Just a little more tone from the upper crest. Let it fade just a bit more. And we'll bring in the shadow across this here. Let's just get this highlight to work. There it is. Oh, sorry about that. Tells me where the light source is coming from. There it is. And then there it is. All of a sudden, we got some pretty good definition going in that guy. All of a sudden, it's starting to come together for us here, Gavin. Even most of the body of that form, for the time being, in pure paper, for the obvious reason you'll see in a moment here, as I come down the line here with this guy. Pardon me. So, again, the shadow's in place. Surfaces are working pretty well. I think we're okay here. Just going to slide that through. Now let's go back and just finish this thing up here just a bit. Let's go back to this elevation here. Get the same basic forms working. Starting with a very nice light study here. Down the ground line. Into shape. Take that color band around here into the back side of the shape itself. There it is. This little pod off the rear section. That neat little triangular drop in there, that little sneaky surface drop in there. There it is. It's a little side view here to kind of put some composition together. And again, this, the ventilation area. Let me turn this around just a bit here, guys. There, there, and there. And a little bit of an assembly split line here. Let's get that in place. And this, so we can put a little bit of this, that same neat accent strap in here. Stain it in just a little bit. We'll come back and pick a little more detail like we did, the more animation like we've done in that strap area there. There we are. Get it started here. Now we've got that set. We'll come back in. We'll do the same thing with the pencil here. Let's get a little bit of this recess is here. More animation in that color. There it is. Kind of smooth it out just a bit. And this time we're so close to the ground level here, our ground line. We don't need an awful lot of railing. Let's do this. Let's get a little more animation in that color. We've got a base in there of marker. Let's go back a little bit more animation in this thing. Now let's put that ground line in this, get that shadow to work. So I'm going to use pencil. It's a little thin here. Now that shadow, that means I turn it upside down and get a little more definition in here. And that's just picking up enough of the surface work, that little crown coming out here. And there's my shadow. So there are two views right there. Perspective, pardon me, as we flatten this out a little bit. There's a perspective overview and a little side elevation of this guy. Now the fun part, we're going to start adding a little bit of this. This is going to be the neat part about the whole process here. Now we start taking some of this, and I'm going to go ahead and just kind of mix up some. Let's just do this first. Let's kind of get some of this in place. Take some of this, just put some of this wash in here. Start to bring it up. All of a sudden, look how that just changes the character. It warms it up beautifully. Now back in the shadows, put a little bit of that into place here. Just going to start to really scuff this in. And again, same through here. Up on top of more reflected light. Let's kind of do that. I'll come back and pick up some more drawing work as we go. We're going to do a little bit of highlight along here. And a little bit of highlight across here. And take that right in the shape and just follow it right across the form. And just brush it in. Let's use a little bit of Weaver pad. See if that'll kind of blend it out a little bit more. Yeah, that's nice. Again, across the top of the strap. And what I'm going to lose here in terms of drawing definition, fear not, I'll come back in and pick that up again. Cover and boldening this shape. Let's take it right in there and put a bit of highlight on it. There you go. A little bit of animation here. That's great. There you go. What do you think, guys? Coming along okay? That's fun stuff. Just a little bit of this. We'll take this, not so coarse. Just want to get a little bit of this and put a little bit of shadow back in through here. There it is. Nice. And let's put a bit of highlight back in through here. Pick it up just a touch. Lose it. There we are. Let's get some of this out of here. One of the nice things about this whole process is getting an eraser to work for us here. You can get back in some of that highlight. Let's look what happens in here. I come right back to what I started with in terms of getting a nice combination. Oh, pardon me as I move along here. Pardon me as I get this up. I'm going to lose some of the pastel wash that we laid in there. Get right back to real good solid color. So let's see if I can clean that up just a bit here. Pardon me, we're reaching some new. There we are, gang. Look at that. All of a sudden, it's just taking a lot of that curse off of this. Now let's do this. Get a little bit more of this fascia to work here. Scrub a little bit of highlight. Again, working with the surface where the light is coming from. This front face to read. And there you go. Look at that. Just like that, it's coming together with a very simple series of tools here. And again, simple in the sense that it's very, very timely with regard to, let me just put this down for a second and clean up a couple of surfaces here. There it is there. Let's get that back to normal. Pretty interesting. Let's go back and pick up a little more definition as I go through the lineup here. Get some line thrust back in through here that we've lost just a bit. That's better. A little more drawing definition here. There it is. And again across the top, just to reinforce what these shapes are doing. And again, let me just put this upside down for a moment here. Draw through it. Draw through it and pick up again this very simple little manufactured line here. That's that. And just for what it's worth, maybe a little bit of hot spot back and through a little bit of pencil. Just kind of bring that into play. If it'll work, let's see, we might have to use a little bit of pastel. That's better. So there you are. I mean, it's a, oops, pardon me, let's get this up on top here. And there it is, a little bit of thumbnail study here on perspective that PC Tire working with last week, and just doing some interesting things with this guy here. Let's kind of get this backside form and this base side to work here just a bit. And the same thing is true over here. Let's put a little bit of wash in this guy. Let's just to warm it up just a bit. bit of a fascia graphic in here. It's going to indicate where the light source is coming from and run it right across that whole piece. Run it through. And then we'll come back and resolve it. How's that? Let's do that. That gives us a pretty good overview of where that light source is coming from. Interesting. Let's do this, and we'll pick up a little bit more of that shadow that we've worked on back here. Just going to get this guy to read just a touch. And there it is. I'll catch a little bit more highlight on this guy when we put it together. Got just a bit more of this. And we'll come back and pick up some of the line weights we've lost here. And basically, there it is, guys, with both the perspective study and the elevation study. So it's come together very nicely here in terms of putting it all together. Very interesting here. So one last thing I want to add here, just to put a little bit of a footprint to it here. Let's try this. Let's come back in. And let's do this. Let's have some fun with this guy here. Let's put a little bit of this together. Let's do this. Put a line right about there. Let's put a line right about down here. Let's put a little bit of background to this thing to kind of bump it off the page a bit. I think you'll enjoy this part of the process. This is a neat little trick, I think, in terms of putting pieces together. It's a very safeguard, simple process to deal with here, but I think it really makes a huge difference in putting together the overall format and putting the presentation sketches together. It just really makes an awful lot of sense. So bear with me here, guys. Let me get rid of this brush for a second here, and we'll go back in and I just want to pick up some of this. And we'll wash this in very quick, put a little bit of high contrast back here just for fun. Let's see what happens here. Use this piece of paper. We're going to guard this side just a bit here. I'm using just a pastel wash now to kind of bring a little bit of surface off to this thing and just jump it off the page a little bit more. And I think we've got some pretty good resolves here. It's a very simple sketch. I didn't want to get into a lot of elaboration. We might still work on this thing. I'm not sure yet where the character is going to be, but it's just kind of, now my light source is coming in from over here, so I'm going to run the same stroke pattern in the background the same way. Start there, protect that piece we've illustrated on. Come back onto this side, just pardon me as I rotate this guy just a little bit and just pick up a little bit more of that trauma right there. And let's see what happens here. Just going to take that off and see what takes place here. A little bit deeper. I can come back in a little bit deeper and do the following now with my hands. A little richer. Get a little more strike in this thing. A little more excitement, a little bit of the backdrop. Just kind of blend it just a little bit more. And add just a touch more of this, just down, just a bit below here. Let's see what happens when we put this mask on here. Yeah, there we go. Let's put a little bit more of that block piece in there. Let's get a little more impact right about there, and about right there. Nice, just a little bit of pastel. Just kind of give a little more history in the back of this thing. Now, the nice thing about that as well, too, is this. You can now take that thing, and once you've got the wash in place, watch what happens here. Now you come back in, you pick up a little bit of highlight here off of that edge, and just get more drama in the backdrop. And now you start to look at pieces by doing the protect that edge just a little bit. There we are. And let's get rid of that, guys. We'll put that all up there. Now let's get rid of that mask and see what we've got back here. Pardon me as I kind of move this thing aside here, guys. This is the fun part, just putting the nice little final pieces. Yeah, if I get the tape to come up, would be great. Nope, I guess not. There it is. Oh, they're pretty good. There we are. Now it's going to lift that up just a bit. There you are. And we're going to lift this up just a bit and see what we come up with. There it is. A little bit of a vignette to time the two together. And hopefully that'll work out well for us here again. Just going to put this together. Let me see if I can get this brush to come back in just a bit more. And we'll just do the following here. Let's kind of get this guy to just a mask, just a little bit more, just a subtle. Yeah, there you are. Just kind of pull it back just a bit. A little more backdrop in this thing. Maybe just a couple more of a wedge here. There we are. Go back out of this thing. And we'll just do this. Sharpen the stick here for a moment. And let's do this. And I think that just about wraps up the sketch in terms of, oh, pardon me, now I want to make sure we get these line weights picked up a little bit more. Yeah, what we lost here, I just want to pick it up just again, just a bit. Elevation study, and again, the 3/4 perspective on what this form is going to look like, as far as the final design resolve is concerned. Now, we might be there. For example, this could be the end of it all. We could go back and refine some things. We make sure, see what the jury states in terms of if you look at the program here, it kind of give me some insight as to which ones you felt, or which approach feels good to you. Did this resolve the problem for us? Is there a little bit more we can do with this thing? I really would appreciate your input in terms of likes and dislikes, and we can always go back and begin to refine these things and go through another pass here. Again, this is just one simple resolve at getting used to seeing, for example, from the passes we did on this Tuesday, of getting some resolve on some of the design themes that were preferred during that stream process, which I thought was great. I mean, I really enjoy having that conversation with the audience and making sure we're going back and forth with some design ideas. Let's try this. What about this? What about that? Really very, very helpful. So let's bring this guy back into play here again, just in terms of review. This is where we started. So this is the design selection we work with in these rough studies. These are little thumbnail studies that were done initially back on Tuesday of this past week. So we had two flavors to work with here. We had one of those guys, and we had, let me get back this other one here just for a moment. Go back and get these guys all lined up. We had this variety too, where we had very geometric pieces to work with, and it was okay. I mean, there were some things being done with that where they're kind of cool. Another way to look at the shear side of things, they're packaging these components into a tower of some sort. But again, I think the second pass we did with more of the traditional kind of a lean back 45-degree load into this thing was interesting in terms of the consumer or the viewer's feedback. And then the second phase we went into, let me get rid of these two guys here, were in cases such as this. Went back and refined that first pass one more time by doing this, looking at that as a family, for example, going back in and staying with that same angled piece, that same backpack rear assembly piece into the actual tower itself. Then a little bit of hooded element, again, the review side here of what we're all putting together in terms of sketches. And then again, the second part of that was doing this. It just came through going more of a like horizontal. We would go back and we might do a series of these guys too, as far as preferences go. These are more the vertical air-cooled systems, almost like two jet fans in terms of rights and lefts, to take another look at this PC tower piece. So that was another study we did, but I think the overall, that was one page we did, and then the other page was, again, let's go back to the original we just finished today. But I think the real exercise today is to go back to that first pass we did and take a look at a really nice sketch rendering in terms of what this guy looks like for a tower case. It could be easily manufactured, very easy to do, I think. It's amenable, everything's loaded in again. We can still take care of all the power supply. It could be back in this area here. We can motherboard this thing either vertically or else on the horizontal or in the 45. Cooling systems, obviously, are there, and also we kind of add more filter to it or width if we need it. And all those pieces came together rather nicely. So, and again, I appreciate it if when you look at the stream today, if you would take a peek at it and let me know what you think in terms of the content and the design process, and does it have merit? Would you make changes, and if so, what would they be? How would that come about? And be interesting to get your feedback on this guy. Very interesting. So really interesting. And so it's for what it's worth too. I thought I'd give you a bit of an insight here. In the next few streams, I'm thinking about going back in and doing some pretty neat stuff in terms of maybe getting some teaching work in terms of organic shape, maybe surface definition, some section work and the like. Getting a lot of feedback or questions, not on camera so much or on stream, but from my client base about how to develop organic shapes or round surfaces. I mean, that's very difficult to do. So I think there's a method to the madness, and I might go back in and do an exercise on some centerline geometry and how that all begins to function and help our sketches become much more manageable and far more effective without being distorted. So there's some lesson series coming up. So if you like that, for example, if you think that's part of the process you'd like to see me do, be more than happy to kind of provide that for you. But nonetheless, maybe this next few streams, I might start doing some speed form studies, some automotive work. I might go back into a Maserati series, doing some conceptual work for Maserati, getting into some Ferrari material and so forth. So I'm going to just change things up a little bit. Get product design. I might do a couple of interior pieces. So I'm really looking forward to getting a lot of feedback from you all. So if you're watching and if you're tuning into the stream and you have a concern about, for example, that you have a drawing exercise or difficulty with, feel free to let me know, and then please drop me a line at my email address at jim@drcontrast.com. All lowercase, jim@drcontrast.com. I'll be more than happy to kind of address certain things, and even on the stream, if you want me to show, if you want me to go through a program about, hey, I need to do this, or how do I understand or get to that done, I might not be able to resolve it for you, but I'd love to be able to help you if I can. So that's part of the process too. Once again, drop me a note of the content you'd like to see at jim@drcontrast.com. Be more than happy to comply. In fact, I'm looking forward to building my audience. If you know of anybody who is interested in this kind of thing, please pass the word along. My stream dates are on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. Tuesdays from 2:30 to 3:30. Wednesdays from 4 to 5 normally, unless there's a schedule conflict in all areas. And then Thursday, today, 2:30 to 3:30. So those 3 days I'm always active. I might be changing some things in the near future here, but that's where I'm active. And boy, I'd love to have you join me and follow me in terms of process and work. And I know it's a bit of an odd one. I'm in the art category, but nonetheless I do a lot of design work, but I'm all over the place. I might start doing some fine art stuff here too. I might entertain some watercolor. I've got some pretty nice sketches already laid out already. It's a watercolor board. I might just do a watercolor study on a stream. So I'm trying to do as much as I can to help as many people as I can. And I really appreciate you all joining in here, especially those of you who've been loyal followers. I cannot thank you enough. It's been really great to have you on board, and so appreciative of your time. And I hope it's been of some interest to you. And if you're watching, Nemo and Brad and all the loyalists that have been over with me for the last year or so since I've been on Twitch, or less than a year, I sincerely thank you. You've been a lot to me, and your input has been terrific. So once again, drop me a note at my email address at jim@drcontrast.com. And I always state this to be true too. And really look at my website too. I've got a website, drcontrast.com. It is a really neat series of digital learning lessons. There are 9 lessons, very inexpensive. They take you from perspective all the way through to some case studies and surface work. There's a variety of things there. Take a peek at it. Also, on my website, you'll notice I'm on Instagram, Twitch, and YouTube. So please feel free to take a peek at that. Primarily look at my drawing lessons if it can be of help to you. And again, it's at drcontrast.com. And really looking forward to hearing from you. And above all else, I will sign off with every stream we do with this very important lesson, statement made from me. And it's very sincere, and I mean it from the bottom of my heart. With thanks to you, never forget to remember to dare to be great, because you are. Thanks very much, gang. We'll pick this thing up maybe next week, and we'll get some feedback on these towers. If we want to carry it on, that's great. If we don't carry it on, we'll move on to another series of subject matters. But I'm looking forward to having you join me. And above all the very best to you. And again, once again, dare to be great, because you are. Thank you very much.